Hi everybody, I'm Tori Hartman and I am a professional psychic, and I am also the author of the best-selling Chakra Wisdom Oracle Cards and the Chakra Wisdom Toolkit. And I want to just do a kind of a little informal chat and tell you a little bit about me and my background so that you understand where I've come from, and just an opportunity to get to know me a little bit. And I'm one of those people who believes that intimacy is into me see. It's not something that I'm going to get from you. It's something that I am, and that you actually get to see who I am. So my story. From the time I was about 5 years old, my mother, who had a big challenge with alcohol, would tell me I had no command of the language. And when I did start school, she would sit me down and dictate my school papers to me. And I had to write down exactly what she said, word for word, or she would go into upset. And those were the papers I turned in at school. I really believed I couldn't write, and I didn't know how. Now, by the time my mom died, when I was a teenager, I actually, and everybody has a sad story, by the way, so this is mine. Ready? Get out the violin. By the time she died, I really believed that I couldn't write and I had no command of the language, so I failed English in high school. But I've always been a really good storyteller, and even being prevented from writing didn't stop that, I want to say, that gift, because I would use cards. I would when I was little, I would just open like whatever card deck was around, and I would just make up stories around it. And unbeknownst to me, these stories were actually very true. And that's how my parents started to discover that I had a gift, because I would pull out a card and say, oh, so-and-so's going to come over, and that person would show up. Or I'd say to my dad, I'd pull out a card, or I'd say, you don't have anything to worry about. You're going to make that $308 for that, for that commercial. You made that money. Because my gift worked as I saw it already happening, right? As if it had already happened. So I'd say, oh, well, you got this already. So, and of course, my father would get that check for $308. Now, that's kind of my earlier story. And when I was 25, I had a near-death experience. Now, during that time, and that's a longer story, so I will tell you that when I came back, I had these angels visiting me, and they would tell me these stories, and they wouldn't go away until I wrote them down. Now, I have to tell you, maybe in the middle of the night, I'd be like grabbing a pen. So I'd write these stories down, and sometimes they were just like on the back of like paper towels, even napkins, because they appeared when they appeared. And I took these fables because and at the time I was writing a book for Putnam, and part of it had a whole definition of color in it. So a lot of these fables appeared with color meanings in them, and I took them and I shoved them in drawers, right? So they were just in drawers for about 10 years. Now, I have to tell you, I started doing a group mastermind. And just what that means is just a bunch of creative artists like myself. I was a writer, getting together and talking about our art. And it was about that time during that mastermind that I started pulling these fables out, and we would read the fables. And as we read them, and it just happened one night that they came out, not to go into the whole long story about it, but I intuitively created group activities around each fable. So we'd pull a fable and I'd say, oh, okay, here's the exercise to do. And those exercises today are actually they're actually in the toolkit, the original toolkit. Now, the early fable groups formed the very first manuscript that would later become the Chakra Wisdom Cards. And I found an artist online to actually draw the cards. I couldn't get anybody to publish this thing like 20 years ago, right? Now, when I talked to her, she said it would take a year. I was like, I don't care. I've been with this for 15 already. So I sent her the manuscript, and every week a new drawing would appear in my inbox. And when it was over, when we'd finished the deck, she just mentioned that she felt that there was another fable to even out the number. And it was funny because I said to her, I don't feel a fable, but I feel an angel. And I wasn't really sure what that meant at the time. I just had a sense. And I have to tell you this part. I spent my entire life savings, probably not something I would recommend to people, over $100,000 to get the deck made in China. And I didn't know, you have to imagine, like I'm thinking, 10,000 copies. How many can that be? Well, I was telling the ladies at Barnes & Noble a few weeks ago, I was saying, 10,000 copies. They said, that can be a whole store, right? So if you want to know how many 10,000 is, you just kind of order them and they show up in pallets on your driveway, right? But then when they got delivered, I found out that I couldn't sell them on Amazon because it would cost me $1 per unit. So what I paid and what they would charge me, well, I didn't know what to do. So I said, well, I can't sell them on Amazon. So I decided to put the whole deck up for free with a shuffler, card shuffler, so people could use it online. And I thought, well, I was given the fables free, so you use the fables for free. And then I charged if people wanted to buy the deck. I said, here's how much it costs. Well, miraculously, over the next 3 years, I sold 10,000 copies, just about 10,000 off my website alone. And I have to tell you, through working the cards, studying the fables really, and mastering them, I found my purpose. And I began to see that that's what the cards did for other people who were studying the cards as well. One thing I left out as I was telling you the story is that 6 months after the decks were finished, and I'd put them up online on the website for people to use free, Gretchen, the artist of the cards, died. She was only 41 years old. Her husband came home and found her dead on the floor. And it was then that I realized these cards were her legacy. And she left us this. She was actually the final spirit for the cards. And this is a side note too, that somebody mentioned somewhere, I guess it was on some note, somebody said, I don't like the way the cards are drawn or something. And it's so funny, that kind of hit me because it was like, this was her legacy. Why would you say that, But anyway, that was all long ago. So in January 2013, I decided to travel to London to visit the London Book Fair. And I have to tell you, I said, I'm going to go sell at the London Book Fair because I did not want to be sending out any more decks. And people said to me, well, the London Book Fair, you're not going to sell anything because they only buy foreign rights there. And I said, perfect, I'm foreign. It'll be great. There I met my publisher, Jo, and she's amazing. She was new to Watkins Publishing at the time. And they published the deck. And I have to tell you, when it came out, within a few days, it had a life of its own. This has not been an easy journey. But what I discovered is that the cards were my purpose. Even through all those years, even like really all those years that I went through stuff, I thought they were in the way of what I was here to do. Now, I want to wrap up by telling you, and as I'm talking about me, that this work is always evolving for me. A number of months ago now, I woke up and realized that what I said for years to other people, I always say, well, our wounding becomes our unique gift. And I realized that it worked perfectly with the fables because, you see, my mother's dictating all my school papers to me. When the angels came and told me their stories, I was uniquely qualified to take dictation. Listen, I love the fables, and I'm very honored that the angels came to tell me these stories. I sincerely hope that on my part and on your part, I hope our paths get to cross and that I get to meet you one day. Many blessings.